Well, Moscow and Washington say the arrest of the alleged Russian spies by the FBI will not affect relations between the two countries. Russia's foreign ministry has acknowledged its citizens are among the 10 arrested, but denies they are secret agents. An 11th suspect has been detained in Cyprus and released on bail. RT's Gayane Chichikyan has more for us from Washington, D.C.
The U.S. State Department said the U.S. is going to continue developing ties with Russia despite the scandal, and that they're in contact with their Moscow colleagues on this matter. Also today, Obama refused to comment on the issue, and the U.S. State Department was asked about the timing of the release of these allegations just days after Medvedev's visit in the United States. That was seen as very cordial and friendly, and the State Department said it was the Justice Department's decision, of which they knew nothing about. I'd like to point out this. Those arrested haven't been accused of espionage. They're accused of failing to get registered as agents of a foreign government. Some here say the story sounds more like featuring illegal immigrants rather than spies. By the way, the Russian Foreign Ministry said all the 11 individuals arrested are Russian citizens. The FBI says some of these people lived under false identities. Most of them had American names, and according to the FBI, they tried to become as Americanized as possible. Most of them lived as family couples in different cities in the U.S., including New York, Boston, and Arlington, which is Washington, D.C.'s suburb. Well, we got hold of some shots of the building one of the accused lived in. From their windows, apparently, you could see the Pentagon on the other side of the road. The FBI claims they were carrying out long-term, deep-cover assignments in the United States on behalf of Russia. There is no proof in the reports published by the Justice Department that the information the alleged spies obtained and reported to Moscow was of any serious value or in any way breached the U.S. national interests. But the way the FBI presented it reads like a true spy novel. It features identities borrowed from dead Canadians, messages written with invisible ink, also alleged secret agents using private networks, wireless networks, to send encrypted messages from coffee shops and bookstores, also coded texts hidden in images posted on the internet. Cash buried in New York for years, also laptops with special Russian-made software, and code phrases like, "Excuse me, could we have met in Malta in 1999? Great food for Hollywood. Also have to mention those arrested men and women are accused of money laundering, and on these charges they could face up to 20 years in prison.
RT's Gayane Chichikyan from D.C. right there. Now, the American Justice Department got carried away in their actions. Well, that's according to Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, who has held a meeting with former U.S. President Bill Clinton in Moscow. However, the Prime Minister insisted the incident would not dent Russia-U.S. relations.
In the U.S., the police have gone all the way putting people in prison. Well, it's the kind of job they have. But I hope this will not harm the positive relations between our countries we've managed to develop.
Well, even after the so-called spy scandal, Russia and the US should continue its reset in ties and move forward with mutual trust. That's according to the Deputy Director of the Institute for USA and Canada Studies, Viktor Kremenyak.
Just the maturity of the relationship between the nations also is measured by the fact that they give the chance to their services, to their agencies to work as they are supposed to work, and not to mix that with the importance of the relations between them. And I think that this is the exact case when both the Russian and the American heads of state regard this whole situation with some cool feeling and are not going, to rush in with the mutual accusations. Maybe I am too optimistic, but I think that one of the outcomes of this situation will be, the understanding of the need to look to revise deeply the type of our relationship. Maybe, just to go ahead with the developing of the mutual trust, of cooperation, and of the mutual assistance.
Well, for some, the so-called spy saga sounds more like fiction. RT's Maria Finoshina met with a former KGB officer who doubts the suspects are spies at all.
No high-tech gadgets, no high-powered supercars. But the Russian-American espionage saga is packed with some of the genre's other clichés. 11 Russians who apparently spent decades under long-term deep cover in the US. They supposedly sent their secrets to Moscow by shortwave radio, made cash deliveries by swapping identical orange bags, and even used invisible ink. Mikhail Lyubimov is a former KGB officer who served in the Russian secret services in Britain and Denmark for years. He says the whole story looks more like the work of spy fiction and has nothing to do with real undercover work.
How can you imagine that 11 professionals didn't notice that secret services had been watching them, as they say, for years? If not them, their wives would have noticed. And so far it's not clear at all exactly what secret information they've been looking for, and what were they supposed to have sent to Moscow directly to the Kremlin, Medvedev or Putin. It's nonsense, and I don't even talk about invisible ink. I remember the Bolsheviks loved it.
With the scandal breaking out just days after President Medvedev's successful visit to the US, Mikhail is sure this is a ploy to spoil Russia's image. But if so, who could be behind it?
It's a PR campaign by the US's secret services to get more money for next year's budget. They can say, you remember that operation with 11 spies? We did that. And they make these operations catchy ones to attract people's attention. It happens quite often that the administration and the secret services are conflicting. This could be the case.
The former Secret Service officer says that back in Soviet times, the response to something like this would have been very different to that of today, with the consequences much more serious for both. A typical tactic would have been tit-for-tat arrests of Americans.
Russia could have arrested 10 photographers, US tourists for instance, who've been taking pictures of the Black Sea, and say they were interested in Russia's fleet there. Everybody would have believed it.
But with Moscow and Washington saying they hope the row won't affect relations between the two, it's clear old tactics are no longer an option. While much of the world's media is labeling it a Cold War-style scandal between Russia and the US, many experts from both sides of the Atlantic say the incident owes more to Hollywood fantasy than hard reality. They believe it's unlikely to derail the two powers' reset relations. Marie Finoshnati, Moscow.